This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FY Investment Group, and your host of Boston Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Bob Marro. Bob, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then I want to talk about Libya first, which you were very much engaged in it.
Good. Well, my background is U.S. Foreign Service. I served for almost 25 years.
The State Department?
Well, State Department originally, and then Commerce Department, since my specialty was commercial affairs.
Sure.
And I served in a variety of different posts, and then back in Washington, I was responsible for all commercial activities in the Middle East, South Asia, and Africa. So I had developed an affinity for that region. Then after I retired, I was doing international business consultancy, and I know of a number of very close friends who were from Libya, so that led to this particular...
This is the during time of Muammar Gaddafi's regime.
Yes.
But the Libya is in turmoil right now. There are
It
two
is.
factions, and they're trying to, get hold of it, become powerful, so on, so forth, and so, and they're claiming their own in terms of who's the most powerful and who's going to be the governing it. So, can you explain to me the difference? What's going on over there?
You know, it shaped out because of during the revolution, there was not any one solid opposition to it. There were a number of different groups based in various regions.
Right.
And after the revolution, after Gaddafi was deposed, the two probably most powerful groups, one represented what you might call as moderate secularism, another moderate Islam. But the militias never really came to an accommodation together. So the central government never really had control over all the disparate militia groups. As the central government continued to lose some of its control, the power of the individual militias kept rising as the central government was falling. It manifested itself. Now you've got the one group which is in Tripoli, which is the remnants of the elected General National Congress. But there was another group that was elected last June in a new parliament or House of Representatives. But there's questions about the legitimacy of the election. There's disputes over whether or not there was an official...
Are they going to come together to govern?
If we have anything to do with it, yes. Our role is to try to get them to be unified and to sit down and negotiate and to come up with a unity government that represents all Libyans.
They're blessed with the natural resource, which is oil and gas.
Yeah, I mean, not only resources, but they have a small population.
Sure, and very small population. So it seems to me that it's for them to come together to govern. It should be very important to not to the Libya, but to the world as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you talk a little bit about the fact that about the Muammar Gaddafi's regime. What kind of a legacy he has left behind?
42 years of chaos, oppression, repression.
Chaos, and what is the other word you use?
Oppression.
Oppression.
Yeah. Repression. You know, the Gaddafi family ran the country as their own private fiefdom. And they never allowed any kind of opposition. There was no political movements. So there was never any opposition within Libya, so that when he fell, there was no one party or one group that was able to step in and run the government. And the Gaddafis made
So it was a
point.
dictatorship.
It was an absolute dictatorship, and it was a very fearsome dictatorship.
So there was no freedom or fear.
No. And you know, after 42 years, people got used to keeping their heads down, not doing anything, not taking any kind of a risk that might get them in trouble with the regime. They all want democracy, but 42 years of that kind of repression does not foster any kind of a true democratic feeling.
Do you see a brighter horizon?
Yes. If they can get stability, you know, as you said, all kinds of resources, not only oil and gas, Libya has the best preserved Roman, Greek, Phoenician, and other
No
ruins
question
in the
about
world.
that. You're absolutely right, and I hope they did not ruin that during this time, what happened there.
Yeah.
As I understand, they did preserve it.
Yes, they did. And I think they
That's the
do
history.
realize. Exactly. And, you know, even, like, for example, what happened in Afghanistan when they blew up the statues of the Buddhas,
Sure.
that's not going to happen in Libya. I mean, people take a much more, you know, a secular view. Even the Islamists, they realize that this is part of their
Not
culture.
the same Islam is trying to be barbarian, trying to kill those people in Iraq and Syria.
No, although...
We will talk about that a little bit about that.
Yes.
So does the Libya matter to the United States and the
Absolutely.
West? And why does it matter, besides the resources they have, besides they're very important part of North Africa?
You know, just from on an economic point of view, they have the capacity to produce 3 million barrels of oil per day.
Which is a lot of oil.
Yeah.
And they also, not only the oil, they have also gas.
Yes. But
which is a precious commodity.
And because of the 42 years of neglect under Gaddafi, their capability right now is less than 1.5 million. So if they get more technology, if they can partner with Western firms, American firms, they can increase, they can double their production from the 1.5 million to 3 million. But they need that expertise coming from the United States. Not just in extracting the oil, but helping them develop a petrochemical industry, helping them find the ways to maximize that production, getting it to the market. Then you've got tourism, you've got educational. The average Libyan wants to come to the United States to study.
When I was a student back in Colorado, most of my classmates were Libyan.
Not surprised.
A lot of classmates, not most. Yeah.
And that legacy has continued to this day.
Yes.
They still want to come here.
Yeah.
And when we have conversations, they're interested in getting American universities to set up branch operations.
We welcome them. We welcome them to
Exactly.
come to our country.
Yeah.
So there has been a historical tie between the United States and Libya also, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Can you shed some light on that?
Over 200 years. If you know the Marine Corps hymn, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, that's Tripoli.
Shores of Tripoli, and Tripoli is a part of Libya. That was the capital.
exactly.
That still is the capital.
And at that time, that was during the Barbary Wars when the Barbary pirates were preying on American shipping. And there was, the U.S. Navy went in, sailed the ship, the USS Philadelphia, went into the harbor in Tripoli, actually ran aground and was captured, but then the commander, Stephen Decatur, went in and rescued, they didn't rescue the ship, but they managed to burn it and destroy it and take back all the captives. There was another group that came in from the desert and freed the captives. It makes a very, very interesting story.
It makes a compelling story.
Well, and we've talked to a couple of film producers. As soon as the situation in Libya gets a little bit more stable.
Become more stable. What do you think it'll be? Where do you think and when do you think? Not where. When do you think the situation will become more stable?
Always hard to make a projection, but I think in the nearer term rather than the longer term.
I would say so.
And I think part of there is some active shooting going on between the sides. But I think people have realized that, look, neither side has the ability to impose its will militarily on everybody else. So there is a growing movement, even pushed by the United Nations, that we've got to get both sides to the table and start talking and figure out how we can do this and get everybody to live peacefully and to exist side by side.
Coexistence.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the potential for American business to invest. And we want the Libyans to invest in America as well.
Yeah.
So, and how does the Libyan feel about America?
Just like the students that you knew.
The students that I encountered them, they were the best.
Yeah. And it's funny, even during the periods of when Gaddafi was at really
And this was Gaddafi when he was at that time that, in charge of Libya.
And even when he was in conflict with the United States and, both sides were throwing brickbats at each other, the average Libyan still looked at the United States as someplace that they really looked, it was sort of their model for what they would like to become. And they all wanted to come to study, they would like to come. The Libyan American diaspora here in the United States is very significant.
I did not realize that.
Here in Virginia, in the Fairfax area,
is that right?
There's quite a few. There's another out in California, up in Michigan, down in Houston, Atlanta.
So they came as students and just stayed here?
Some of them as students. Some of them just fled the regime and came as professionals and set up here. One of my close associates is a chap named Dr. Asami Omesh. Came here as a teenager, didn't speak a word of English, went on to become the valedictorian in his high school, got a full scholarship to Georgetown University, full ride to Georgetown Medical School, and now he's the head of internal surgery
so he's giving
at
back.
Fairfax Innova. Exactly.
So what about the possibility and the potential and the promise of America's in terms of the Americans doing a business and is there a lot of a promise here? There's a lot of potential there.
Yes, and
beside the oil and gas industry, what the other industry they can help?
They have a huge need for a medical industry.
That is
healthcare.
And healthcare, we are the best.
Yeah, exactly, and they recognize it, and they know that the United States. In fact, they sent a lot of people who were wounded or
to the United States.
After the revolution, they wanted them to come here to get their treatment. We've had conversations with Johns Hopkins Hospital and hospitals out in Kansas and Texas who are treating various people who they call the wounded warriors. And they want to set up, they want to have hospitals, they want to have online capabilities, they want to send people here for training. We had the health minister coming here last year for conversations to talk about how can we partner with America to increase our own healthcare system. And it's not just for Libyans. When you think about their location, they could become a nexus for healthcare for everyone from throughout the region.
You're talking about North Africa.
Yeah, North Africa.
Which is
the Middle
Algeria,
East.
Libya, Morocco,
Yeah.
and Tunisia.
Yeah, and even, it could even extend over to like Lebanon, Iraq.
Sure, by all means.
Iran, Turkey, all of those people, not only could they come and be comfortable in Libya, but there would be other things that they could do while they're having their treatment. Tourism, other business opportunities.
Sure.
And they would feel comfortable being in Libya. It is a Muslim country, but it's a moderate country, so they're not going to have any problems like you might have in the Gulf. People feeling uncomfortable because they don't want to be in that rigid society.
Well, I would hope that America has always been the beacon of hope and a democracy for all over the world. And it's a very inclusive and open society. We welcome the people who come to this nation, who can work with us, who can engage us.
Yeah.
It's very important for America. It's very important for Libya to work together.
Yes. And I think the U.S. can play a very significant role. As you said at the beginning, there are two competing factions, two competing governments.
They still exist?
They both do.
So is there any kind of a coordination and communication between the two? Are they just don't collaborate and communicate? They just there's a little bit of freedom of conquest between the two?
Well, there's a certain element of communication via bullet.
Okay,
they
that's
are
not the
shooting
way.
at each other in a few limited places, but it's not a real active.
It's not a
civil
widespread.
war. Yeah, there's constant contact with the United Nations. The U.S. embassy had to be evacuated because of security, but the U.S. and other European embassies are now in Malta. They continue to be in touch.
So they're not in Tripoli?
No.
So they're in Malta,
Yeah.
which is on the Mediterranean coast. Yeah, I did not realize
But
that.
both sides want to get the United States and other Western governments involved to help them sort out their differences. And I think there's a feeling on both sides. And we've had lots of conversations with the government in Tripoli just recently that they're looking for a unity government. And they'd like the United States to help play the role of honest broker.
Are we playing our role? Are we rendering our responsibility?
I think we're still, to a certain extent, waiting to see what's happening.
Right.
I think we could do a whole lot more. And I think we could.
What happened to Benghazi was a very tragic incident, an accident, where what happened, obviously, those are still fresh in people's mind in the United States and the government of this nation.
Yeah, but what's curious about Benghazi? It was an attack. It was a terrorist attack mounted by the extremists in Ansar al-Sharia.
Yes.
But after the attack, it was the Libyan militias who went in and tried to rescue Ambassador Stevens and the others. Took him to the hospital.
Unfortunately, the Ambassador Stevens got killed.
Yeah, and that continues to be a source of anguish. To
You're
Libyan
absolutely
people.
right.
If you drive around in Tripoli and other cities, you'll still see pictures. There was even a picture of Ambassador Stevens' head imposed on a player from the Libyan national soccer team, just as a way of honoring his legacy and his memory. Yeah.
Now, what I would like to talk a little bit about as the beginning of the conversation, we start about ISIS, ISIL, and they have taken some part of the territories, and in Turkey as well as in Syria, which is the. So, do you think they're going to making any kind of stronghold or any kind of things in Libya also? Are they playing any role there?
They sure want to.
They sure want to?
Yeah, they've already been talking about they want to expand out, and Libya is one of the countries that they've mentioned. There is an active Islamic State group in the city of Derna, which is outside of Benghazi. And they've more or less taken a significant amount of control in that one particular city. Not so much that the people support.
People do not support this
in
barbaric
their hearts,
act.
Yeah, but they're just terribly afraid because there's no countervailing authority that can stop them.
So, but if these two governments can work together, they could be more powerful, so they can fight against the ISIL and Islamic State.
Yeah,
because that is not what Islam is all about.
No,
they're barbarian.
Yeah, and ISIS is condemned by both sides. Even, with the group that's considered the Islamist group, want nothing to do with ISIS. They say, these people, they're perverting our religion, they're hijacking it. This says what they're doing is actually prohibited by Islam.
You're absolutely right. This is not what Islam teachings are.
Yeah.
Islam doesn't teach to kill innocent human being.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It always is tuned for equality, dignity, tolerance, respect.
Absolutely. And the majority of Libyans, vast majority of Libyans, want to get rid of this. And I think that could even be an impetus for both sides to get together, because this is a common enemy. If you leave the vacuum, as you saw in Iraq, there was a vacuum and ISIS came in and filled the vacuum because you've had the conflict between the Sunnis and the Shia.
Let's work together for them to achieve their goals.
Yes, let's finish the job.
Let's finish the
Make
job.
sure
That's
that